And we're live. So welcome everyone to our very first CorinCon Cubed event. It's the name I'm going with, CorinCon Continuing Content. That's 3 cons in a row, and thus CorinCon Cubed. And we are here today with the inimitable Rob J. Hayes, who, oh gosh, and I should put us on gallery view. Okay, and this is not muted, so I've got the horrible, horrible echo. There we go. Okay, that's solved now. So, yeah, so we are here to talk to Rob about a lot of things, some of which might be books. For those who are not familiar with Rob's work, his book, Where Loyalties Lie, won the 2017 SPIFFO, thank you. I was like, no, I think it's not 18. Is it 17 or 16? Okay.
It's amazing how many people think it's 2018. It's like, no, that was Orconomics.
No, that was Orconomics. No, I actually remember that because that was the first year I tracked it. But so it's the 2017 SPIFFO, and his book Never Die was also a finalist in the 2019 SPIFFO. And he is a great author who sells lots of books and that you guys should all like. And he's also a fine human being, and we're here to talk to him about.
Jury's out on that one, but yeah.
Talk to him about all of that stuff. So I have questions, and I have them here in my notes. And I'm going to just start in with the very first one, Rob. Because whatever, you're famous enough, I'll post links to your book. People can look it all up. But we're here to get to the bottom of some really important stuff. Namely, there's a lovely picture of you on Facebook. It was your, it may still be your profile picture for a long time. Of you standing on the mountain dressed like you've just looted the body of a Viking. Why is that?
Yeah, okay, so a few years ago, 3 years ago or so, I did a bit of Viking reenactment.
Oh yeah.
You know, sort of like learning to shield wall and stabby, and all that lot. I even did a couple of shows and stuff where we fought in front of hundreds of people.
Nice.
A lot of fun. And so yeah, when we were doing that, at some point we decided a few of us were going to go have a mountain-based photo shoot.
Nice.
We all got dressed up in our fancy Viking gear and went and stood around on mountains looking, I don't know, pillagey,
looking intimidating.
Yeah. And had some pictures taken. And then I thought, you know what, that could work as a good author picture.
That's solid.
I thought it looks suitably epic. It's maybe not quite as epic as like John Gwynn's author photo, which I still think is like the best author photo ever. It's just him lounging on a chair in the middle of a field with axes and dogs everywhere, and it's like, yeah, that one.
Yeah, so, solid. A solid second. Yeah.
Not quite as epic, but I like to think sort of, standing there looking off into the distance with an axe at my side and all that.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Which mountain is it?
I could not name it. It's about 40 minutes from where I live, basically. It's sort of like big valley and everything like that. So yeah.
By the way, as I was stalking you on Facebook, I realized that you live not far from where I have a good friend from England who is from the Sheffield area, at Dronfield actually. But and I was like, oh look, Rob lives not far from there.
I lived in Sheffield for about half my life.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, until I went to university, I basically lived in Sheffield for I don't know how many years now. Many years.
Many years.
And then I came to university in Derby, and decided, okay, I'm moving to Derbyshire.
As one does.
And stuff.
Well, cool. Yeah, that's the funny thing about stalking people on Facebook. Like, we talk fairly often, and yet we don't often talk about, like, so where exactly in England do you live? And then you go, like, looking around someone's profile, and you're like, oh, crap, I actually know where that is. All right, next question, because these are all very important, and I would like us to address them all. It also looks like you enjoy paintball, or else firing weapons at your friends. Do you have a favorite paintballing place? Or are you actually shooting people?
No, it was actually airsoft rather than paintball.
Oh wait, sorry, it's what? Airsoft?
Airsoft.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sort of like paintball, except the guns look a bit more real and you're firing little plastic pellets.
Pellets, yeah.
But
Like paintball, except it hurts more.
actually, no, paintballs hurt more, funnily enough.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, paintballs are like that, but they're quite big, and when they hit you, it's a lot of stuff. So a little BB just hitting you. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that stings. But I haven't been in years, basically. I've still got guns littered about the house, not real ones, obviously.
Right. Well, because you live in the UK, so yeah.
Exactly. But no, I haven't actually been in years now. But I had some good times, like in the forest. We did a few sort of forest type ones in the night time, which is great. You couldn't see more than 2 feet in front of you, so somebody could walk past you, and if you're really sort of still, they wouldn't even notice, and you could be like, haha.
That's how I hide from my 3-year-old all the time. In broad daylight. Like, just if you hold really still, she'll walk right past you. She's like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Well, that's exciting. Those games are really fun. I actually, I've done laser tag once, and I've always wanted to try paintball, but haven't. But I really enjoy that kind of thing. Like as a kid, my brother and I would do that all the time. We would go out in the woods and hide from each other and pretend to track each other down and shoot each other, but without any weapons of any kind.
It's a lot of fun, and you're running around a lot, so it's good exercise as well.
Yeah. Good times.
And shooting people, which is cathartic.
It's very cathartic. That's right. Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you? It seems like that would be a thing you could probably still do safely in quarantine too, because it's not like you're getting closer than 6 feet to anyone, in general. And you could just make a rule that, like, where you might come up and do a head tap, you can't do that anymore. Instead, you have to stay 6 feet away from everybody. And as long as everyone's bringing their own weaponry, doesn't seem like it would spread too much COVID around.
BYOG, bring your own guns. Yeah.
That's right. All right. This third question is super important. Rob, how do you address rumors that you once got very stoned and almost made out with a snake?
It's quite possibly true. Who knows? I mean, there are pictures of Dirk Ashton online with a snake, and there are rumors that I am Dirk Ashton. So,
did you know that there's a picture of you online with a snake in all your Facebook
posts? There is. That's from my Fiji days.
And you're like staring off into the middle distance, and the snake is like right there, and it almost looks like you're about to go.
That was some good Facebook story. Yeah, that was from Fiji. When I spent 3 months on a desert island in Fiji.
Nice.
And, so that was probably it wasn't being stoned. That was just heat stroke or something.
Probably okay.
Yeah, no, it was just somebody found a snake. So
yeah,
we didn't know if it was venomous or whatever. We just thought, hey, look, a snake. Let's all play with it, because we were biologists and really smart.
Very, very smart. Did you know that the majority of snake bites that get taken to the hospital are all men between the ages of 18 and 35?
Not surprised me.
In particular, this is a stat that I remember from rattlesnake bites in Arizona, because rattlesnakes are fairly venomous, but they really don't want to mess with humans. Like you got to go out of your way. Like, not only do they sort of stay out of human areas for the most part, there are definitely times when they will come into human spaces, but they then, like, if you're near them, they do the rattle, and that is very much a like, stay away from me, I don't want to have to bite your ass. And yet there's this compulsion amongst apparently 18 to 35-year-old men to like bend over and try to pick up the rattlesnake, and that is in fact how you get bitten.
Just don't mess with snakes or spiders, or just don't mess with wildlife. They will probably kick your ass.
Yeah. And they just want to do their thing. Yeah. But meanwhile, I have picked up a number of snakes that I knew to be non-venomous, and I I now, as an older person, feel a little bit bad about that, because I'm like, oh, I just totally fucked with that snake's day, right? Like, snake was off doing its own thing, and I was like, oh, I want to pick it up, a little green. Oh, look at this adorable garter snake, and it like does its thing, goes around my hand, and then I put it back down, and it goes on its way. And I probably didn't, traumatize it too much, but at the same time, being picked up by something like 100 times your size, and then like crapping your pants, and then like being like, okay, I didn't get eaten, and then continuing on. Probably not like a great thing to have happen.
Because obviously they don't think like people in any way whatsoever. If they can actually sort of like comprehend that you're a creature of that sort of size, or if they're just, I don't know.
I was moving and now I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. It's that'd be a good question for a herpetologist.
Yes.
At any rate, I feel like it would maybe be distressing, but now that we've been talking, now that I know that picture was from Fiji, I have a good guess about my next question, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. Scuba diving? Tell me more.
Yeah, so I spent 3 months on a desert island in Fiji, basically.
Dare I ask why?
It was marine research. That was the scuba diving bit. So we were basically out there sort of mapping the coral reefs.
Brilliant.
In a much lengthier research project, which aim was to sort of determine if the reefs were in decline due to human pollution and all that.
Right. Nice. How did you land that job? Because it feels like out of all the places you could get be chosen to go research, you'd be like, yes, Fiji, please. That would be.
It was volunteered basically. It wasn't paid.
Okay.
I just went and volunteered for it, and I had to sort of like provide all my own gear and everything.
Oh wow.
And flights and all that. So it wasn't really a job; it was a volunteer thing.
Yeah. Did they at least put you up while you were there?
Absolutely, yeah. They sort of they fucked out for all the food and put us up. I say put us up. We were living in huts.
But it's Fiji, so that's all you need, right?
Yeah, well, it was a mostly deserted island. There was one other village on the island, the other side of the island, and there was a holiday resort being built close by. But for the most part, it was just 20 or so of us on this beach, basically just camped out there and scuba diving a few times a day to go and map the reefs, and then coming back and cooking and cleaning, and it was a lot of fun, but a lot of hard work.
Yeah, that sounds like both fun and hard work, which is actually a pretty great combination, really. I find that like 3 months of just relaxing would probably be boring at some point.
I don't know. I mean, it was a beach. It was mostly deserted. I think I could spend months there quite happily.
That's a fair point.
I had a few books with me, and
that's good. Yeah, nice. You could just stuck around for an additional 3 months to kick back afterwards. So you were like, this was your previous life. Like, is this what your degree is in? Is in marine biology?
Yeah, I studied zoology at university.
Nice.
So I think I finished in 2009, 2008. Can't remember now. Yeah. And
do we have Cora? Come on. There we go. As promised, everyone. If you showed up because I promised beagle footage, you've been gratified. There you go.
There is a beagle.
Beagle. It is adorable.
Yes. Where was I? Oh yeah, that's it. Zoology. So yeah, I studied zoology at university, and then sort of after finishing that, thought that's what I want to do with my life. But you need more than just qualifications these days. It's such a competitive field, so I thought I'd try and get some experience, and I figured volunteering was probably the best way to do that.
For sure.
But then while I was out there, I started writing again, and came up with sort of an idea for a world, and the stories set within it, and sort of like I had this little leather journal which I was writing in, writing those stories in. So when I got back, I was just like, actually, this isn't what I want to do. I want to write for a living. So nice. I got my ass in gear and decided to do it.
Amazing. And it has worked out well for you so far. I
yeah, I like to think so.
That's awesome. All right. I really like everything about that story. I also studied zoology for the start of university. And then the only reason I switched was that I lived in Spain for a year. And then when I came back, I could pursue a double major, but it would take an extra year. Basically, like I had all the credits to finish on time with a Spanish major, but not all the credits to finish with a zoology major. And I would have had to do one more year, which I couldn't really afford to do. So I went Spanish only and continued to take, like, most of my electives were science courses, but yeah, I didn't quite finish out the zoology degree. But that's always been a fascination of mine. Like, part of me is like, in an alternate life, I would be a veterinarian or something, but or yeah, just a zoologist. Not just, like, it's a very different thing, but like less, a little bit less schooling involved for some forms of zoology. Okay. Question number 5 in my like highly prioritized list of questions here is that math tells me that in your oldest Facebook photo, you were 23. However, the photo makes it clear that you were about 13. Do you drink the blood of demons regularly, or is it just an excellent skincare regimen?
I mean, yeah, we'll go with the blood of virgins.
Yeah. Demons, not virgins. I mean, maybe virgin demons. I don't know, but
who knows?
Sorry, that was just like, there's this picture of you, and it's like, if you look through your photos, it's the last one you can see, and according to when it was posted, you're supposed to be 23, but I swear you're like, you have such a baby face on that. Like, you look like you were in middle school.
I'd have to have a look, but I did have I did have a bit of a baby face for a long time until I started growing a beard. I used to get sort of like, people used to always say, it's like, oh, you look really young, and I'm like, really? I'm like 30 years old. So yeah, I did have a bit of a baby face, I guess. Nothing to do with any sort of skincare or anything, just luck, actually.
No. That was I was
basically
just, that was a counterpoint to the demon blood, which I thought was the far more realistic answer, but
absolutely.
All right. Question 6 is, I hear you also write books. I guess we can talk about that too. So this is where we take a break from the really important questions and talk about book writing a bit. So one of the reasons that we're talking today is because your most recent trilogy, the War Eternal series, is now complete. Book 3 is the last one. Yeah. So, yes, and all 3 books are out, and you've published them all in like the last 8 weeks. Ooh, look, there we go. There's All Along the Razor's Edge.
They're falling over now. Hang on, I've got them. And that's book 2.
Ooh, Lessons Never Learned. That's book 2. All right.
And then finally, the one that released 2 days ago.
Oh, From Cold Ashes Risen. All right. So, gorgeous covers. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the covers are to die for. Felix Ortiz, right? That's who we're talking about.
Yeah, Felix did the artwork, and Sean King did the design, and yeah, they are absolutely gorgeous. I love them. I love them so much. In fact, I love this one so much. I got a full art print of it to go on my wall downstairs.
Oh, good, nice. I always want to do that with my like original cover art, which I've only done for 2 of my books, but like, oh yeah, when there's that really good original artwork, you're like, oh man, I want to hang that on my wall. I actually feel that way about like the sketches that my artist sends me when we're just sorting stuff out. I don't know if you get this too, where they like send you this thing that they knocked out in 5 minutes, and they're like, how's this for a concept? And you're like, I want to hang it on my wall.
I love it. It's part of why I love working with Felix, actually. He always sends me a bunch of sketches of sort of ideas as he's working through what we're going to do, and every time he sends them, I'm just like, it's brilliant. I'm just like, right, that's my background on my phone, and then he'll send me another one. I'm like, now it's that one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is like they're all like rough sketches, and you're like, but I would hang that up. I would totally hang that on my wall.
Exactly.
Your rough sketch is my like magnum opus. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. And Felix does amazing work. So good choice there. Well done.
I thought so, yeah.
So you released 3 books in 8 weeks. Tell us how you feel, Rob.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
Absolutely shattered. it's a lot of hard work, to be honest.
Yeah.
Releasing one book is hard work. There's the sort of getting it ready. Obviously, you've got going through all the editing and getting the cover art done and doing all that sort of side of things, and then trying to create a buzz around it, because otherwise you're just dropping it in the ocean and it's not going to go anywhere. So you've got to try and create a bit of buzz around it, and then when it finally releases, you think that's over, but it's not over, because then you've got all the reviews coming in, and this. So yeah, releasing one book is hard work. It's exhausting and it's stressful. And it turns out releasing 3 books in 2 months is even harder work, and more exhausting and more stressful.
More stressful. Yeah, who would have guessed?
Yeah. At some point, I'm intending to collect my thoughts about it, along with a few sort of stats of how well it's gone and how much it's taken, and create a blog post. But I haven't got around to it yet, because
you're still recovering. Yeah. Because it's only been 2 days since the last book came out.
Exactly.
Maybe give yourself a breather. Give yourself at least 3 days.
Well, yeah, I'm giving myself a breather by getting back to writing, which is
that's nice.
Something I haven't done in months at this point.
Oh, that's good. I mean, it's not good that it's been months, I guess. Well, or it is, but yeah, it's nice that you're getting back to it.
Exactly, but it does. It feels like it's been about 6 months since I last actually wrote anything, because I've just been sort of like, there's been editing, and then there's been getting the books ready, and then there was more editing, and then there was more editing.
Yeah, it feels like it's never ending until they're actually out, and then you're like, okay, now it's technically done, although it still doesn't feel like it's done for another while yet.
Yeah, that's just it. It's like even once they're out, you've still got the trying to sell them,
right?
Which in many ways is the hardest part.
Yeah.
So
it is. There's not a lot of breaks in the whole cycle, really. But it's nice. I think the best part is when writing feels like a break.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant.
I think that's where I am at the moment, where I've got this sort of like this new idea, which is really fresh and exciting in my head. So I'm just sort of like sitting down and writing sort of 2,000-3,000 words a day, and I'm just like, I'm loving this. This is brilliant.
Yay! Yay! That is fabulous, really. So let's see. Oh my gosh, there are actually comments from people. However, I'm going to ignore them for now and keep going with my amazing questions.
Go for it.
We will definitely look at the audience questions at the end. So audience, if you're, please continue to ask interesting things. But I think we've got plenty of time to actually do both my questions and your questions. So we're going to do all of those. But we're going to keep talking about that whole releasing 3 books or not at once, but in a very short period of time thing for a minute here. Overall, I mean, I know you won't really know sales-wise until a little ways out from now, because book 3 just dropped 2 days ago. But does it feel like it's been worth the additional stress, etc., so far?
Absolutely. To be honest, I think this is probably my most successful launch I've ever actually done. Nice. As far as sales actually go, number of sales. Mm-hmm. And I can assume that is partly down to the rapid release, because obviously every time, when you release book 1, it will get a bump of sales. When you release book 2, the idea is it should give book 1 a bump of sales, and then when you release book 3, same again. So the idea of sort of the rapid release is it's keeping the bump going, mm-hmm. Not giving the sort of the line, that sales line on Amazon dashboard at times to really fall. So you bump it up again, and hopefully that should keep the momentum going, which should drive more sales.
Right. Part of that being the Amazon algorithm, right? Because Amazon itself kicks you.
That works.
Yeah, right. The mystery.
But yeah, there's not much known about that, other than if your book is selling, Amazon tend to like it to keep mm-hmm. selling, so they'll possibly help it along somehow. Maybe. So yeah, it's gone well. It's gone incredibly well. As I say, it's without a doubt my most successful launch to date.
Nice.
Including my debut trilogy, which took off for some particular reason that I have no idea how.
Always nice.
So yeah, the world was a different place and Amazon was a different place, and I can only assume that I managed to get on their algorithm somehow, because I did no sales for the first version, no marketing. I just went, hey, here's some books. So yeah, no, it's definitely gone well, and I would say the rapid release has definitely helped.
That's great.
Push up the launch and keep it going, which is brilliant. So yeah, worth the effort, but a lot of effort.
Yeah. So, and now I want to ask the question. So you pre-wrote all 3 books, right? So they were all done before you started the rapid release process. And I personally, that is the way that I would do it too. But I know some authors talk about releasing a book and like their process works out so that they can work on like a 6-week turnaround schedule with like they publish book 1 and they have book 2 like halfway written before they hit publish, but then they like finish it, edit it, and release it 6 weeks later, 6 to 12 weeks later, depending. But that like every 1.5 to 3 months they can push out another book in the series. And I'm curious, we've talked about this a little bit, so I kind of know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just for the public. But like, how do you feel about that process versus the writing all the books first?
I think from a sort of a sales standpoint, that is probably the most successful way you can do it. Because I believe Amazon likes it if you keep publishing books. So they sort of they help that along a bit, and every time you sort of release a new book, it will help sell the previous books, but it also helps guide people to your previous series. Because if you're releasing a new series, then you'll hopefully generate some new fans, and they'll think, I'll go back and check out the other stuff they've written. That being said, I have no idea how people do it. The idea of writing a book from start to completion and having it ready to go out to readers in 3 months is just, I know people who do it, and I don't understand how. Even with like you see some of their word counts, they'll sit there and go, I've written 10,000 words today. I'm like, oh. But even with that, I don't know how they would do it, because I mean, for me, I write the book, and it usually takes me, I don't know, at least 2 months to actually write the book.
Right.
And then it goes for about 8 editing passes before I even then send it to an actual editor to then send it back, and then it has another couple of editing passes at least. And then I might think about getting the cover ready. So I think the people who can do that are absolutely amazing to be able to do that. And I will never understand how they do it.
That's fair. Yeah. I sort of feel the same way. It seems almost like wizardry. I can write a rough draft that fast. Like I can churn out a rough draft in maybe 2 months, but there's no way, like my revision process just takes so much longer than that. And I only usually do one major revision pass before I send it off to my editor, because I've worked out a way to do it sort of in stages that cover all the pieces that used to take me multiple passes and sort of cram it into one. But even still, that pass takes a long time because I'm doing the multiple sets of things. And then by then I'm already like 3 months is long gone by the time I've done that. Because I also need some time between, like I need to let it breathe. Like I write the first draft and I need to think about it for a bit before I even do like get my brain around what I want to do with the next pass. And I don't know, like I at that point, the people who are already publishing every 3 months are laughing at me in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like I finish a book, and that's me done for a week. I'm like, I finished writing a book. I'm going to get drunk, and I'm going to play on the Xbox for a week.
Totally.
So the way that people sort of like they seem to just they move from one book to the next, and I don't know if they sort of write it all as one big clump. If they're releasing a trilogy, I don't know if they write like all 3 books as one clump and then divide it up. Sort of like just I finished book 1, moved straight onto book 2 without any sort of break.
Yeah.
It's beyond me.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's amazing. But it just seems like wizardry. It's like, I don't actually know how you do that. I think it's amazing. I'm in awe. You guys are fabulous, but that is not in my skill set.
Yes, I think if I tried it, my quality would dip somewhat drastically.
I did, it's funny, I kind of did try it with the Victoria Marmot series. I wrote the first 3 books all together and released them all together. And I actually did, just to test it out, and it turns out to be a bad idea. I actually released them all at once. I was like, that way I'll get 100% read through, because people will finish the first book and the second book will be right there. And that it worked a little bit, but it turns out I didn't really create enough buzz around the whole thing anyway. And so it just like the whole thing fizzled. And then I was like, but it's okay, because I'm going to release books 4, 5, and 6, which book 6 wound up just being book 5. But I was like, I'm going to do that really, really quickly, and like I'll do that every 3 months, because they're only 40,000, between 40 to 50,000 word books. And then no, like that did not happen at all. It turns out that process does not work for me. Like giving myself that tight a deadline. Normally deadlines work in my favor, but giving myself that tight a deadline just made me sort of shut down. There was also a bunch of other stuff going on in my life that didn't help, but like yeah, I just was like, okay. So basically a year later, I released books 4 and 5 a couple weeks apart, and was like, yeah, there you go, it's all done.
I think one of the most important things in writing is to find your own process, the one that works for you, basically. And yeah, I mean, if that's, you can put out a book every 3 months and you can write them that fast and keep the quality up, then go for it. If like me, I prefer to spend a couple of years writing a full series and then releasing it. I'm not going to say I'll do a rapid release ever again, but I like to have the series written before I release any of it, because it might be that as I'm sort of going through book 2 and 3, I'm sort of, I want to change something in book 1 or something like that. Yeah, I like to have that sort of level of control, I suppose, or hindsight. But then, yeah, if it takes you a full 2 years to write each book and get it out, that's fine. It's just find the process that works for you, I feel.
Right. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I feel like that's how all writing advice should have the caveat attached of like, this is what worked for me, and what works for you may be something different. All right, you know what? It's enough about books. We're going back to silly things.
Okay.
No, actually, I'm kidding. Before we go back to silly things, well, yeah, because this is directly related. So we have talked before about how book 2 in this series was the hardest book that you've ever written for you personally, right?
Yep.
And I want to talk about that and about things adjacent to that. So The Lessons Never Learned, ironically titled because it taught you so much.
It really did.
But tell us a little bit about that. I think this is an important topic.
Yeah. So The Lessons Never Learned, it was a real struggle to write. I started it in early 2017, and at the time I was splitting with my then publisher. Because they hadn't paid me. So basically, I was in a bit of a bad place in my own head. I sort of like, I wasn't selling any books because I didn't have any books for sale. I hadn't been paid for ages. My lass was basically supporting me through life at the time, and I was in a really sort of bad place. I felt that I had stalled, and that feeling made its way into the book. So the main character, Eska, went from this sort of like feisty, headstrong youth, and she just stopped and just floundered and just didn't do anything for the entire book. So I really struggled to write book 2 that first time, and I hated it. I hated writing it the entire time, and I struggled through it. And then I finally had this sort of draft ready, and I sent it to my author readers, and they came back and just went, "This is terrible." And I went, "Yeah, I agree." So I basically put it down for a while and thought about scrapping the entire series because I just didn't know how to continue it. And it wasn't until later on in the year, once I'd sort of figured out stuff in my own head where I was, that I thought, okay, I'm going to pick it back up, and I'm going to give it another go. Just because Eska was such a strong character in my mind that I felt that I needed to finish her story. So I did. I picked it up and gave it another go, and it turned out it was a good idea because it's a much better book now. But yeah, it was a real struggle to write, and it very nearly just made me give up on the whole career. So I'm very glad I got through it. And funnily enough, it was Never Die that helped me get through it, because Never Die is this fun adventure book which knocked me out of the funk that I was in, or helped me sort of knock out of it. I was just like, yes, I'm going to write a story about samurai and Shinigami and vengeful spirits and going on an adventure, and
Nice. Yeah. Well, it is. It's a fun book. I mean, it has its dark moments, but it's a fun. It feels like a fun adventure in many ways. Reading it, it's like, I don't know. You can just sort of feel the, like, here we go building our adventure group, and then here we go on this quest, and it's
I've heard somebody describe it as sort of a an Asian D&D adventure, and I was like, yep, I'll take that.
Sounds about right. Totally. You can almost put everybody into a solid D&D class too, right? Like,
exactly. It does kind of work when you
ranger, warrior, rogue.
Somebody said, the person who said that, it was quite derogatory. They were like, 1 star is even D&D adventure, and I was like, excellent. I'm gonna use that to sell the book.
Brilliant. Yeah, when it's pretty good though when your 1-star reviews are telling you a thing that you think is a positive, right? You're like, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's clearly not your thing, but
exactly.
But that is an accurate description of the book, and if that is your thing,
some 1-star reviews are just sort of hurtful, and I wouldn't ever suggest reading through them. But if you are a bit of a sadomasochist, which one ever it is, I don't know. Anyway, if you don't mind it, and you can find some nice, well, not nice, but some funny quotes from them. I've quite often used quotes from 1-star books 1-star reviews to help sell books. It's just quite fun.
Well, yeah, the irony of using a 1-star review to help sell your book is great. But I think even people who leave 1-star reviews maybe don't realize that that is possible to do if they actually aptly describe something about the book and it happens to be a thing they don't like. That is a selling point for a lot of people, right? So like anyone who's looking through your reviews and is like, wait, an Asian D&D adventure? That sounds amazing. like that sells the book. They don't even have to be looking at the way you've turned it into marketing. And I get lowish reviews for my Victoria Marmot series being like, oh, it's feminist, inclusive, blah blah blah, like clearly
how dare you include things,
really pushing the diversity, and that from someone who clearly doesn't want diversity in books. And I've heard from readers who are like, that made me buy it. I'm like, yeah, great, that's awesome. Hopefully nothing about the book feels forced, but yeah, that's right. I include a lot of different types of people in that book, in that series. And for a lot of people, that's a selling point. And for people who don't want that, they should definitely not be reading my books. So that 1-star review is saving me a ton of angry readers,
saving you the subsequent 1-star reviews, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. One really solid 1-star review can save you from a lot of future 1-star reviews. So 1-star reviews are just fine. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say about The War Eternal before we move on?
Buy my books.
Excellent point.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Probably I should probably describe them, but I have no idea how to describe my own books. So
let's see. I would say I've only read book 1, but I did finish it night before last, and I mean, angry young woman escapes from prison hell. Like, well,
yeah,
is it?
It's. I mean, yeah, it's an epic fantasy. It's kind of a high fantasy, though. Book 1 is more like low fantasy.
Book 1 is very much more like low fantasy. Like it
is, but the series itself is very high fantasy. There's sort of like there's big magic. There's gods. There's creatures from another world. There's other races of people. So it's very much high fantasy, but yeah, book one is kind of low fantasy because it's all set in a prison. So
It's
yeah,
like
there we go.
slice of life in a mine.
Exactly. Book one is Along the Razor's Edge is an epic fantasy set in a prison where a young sorcerer is a war criminal and stripped of her magic has to learn to survive and try to escape the prison. Somebody has described it as Mistborn meets Prison Break, written by Mark Lawrence. So
Brilliant.
I'll take that description.
Lovely. Well done. That's an excellent description. Go with that.
I am terrible at describing my own books.
I am too. I have to if I ever think of something good, I have to write it down and then check my notes whenever someone asks, because it's really hard. I think, was it Alicia who was saying, she's like, I don't know, just read it.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. Like,
somebody says it to me, they're like, describe your debut trilogy. And I'm like, it's got like witch hunters and stuff, you know.
And is the series that Where Loyalties Lie is part of, is it a series?
Where Loyalties Lie, yeah, that's part of the Best Laid Plans duology, which is
right, duology. Okay, and that's pirates.
That's pirates.
It's pirates.
It's fantasy pirates, grimdark pirates, I suppose.
What makes a grimdark pirate? Because really, like, are pirates ever anything but morally grey?
I don't actually feel it's grimdark at all, but it gets called grimdark a lot. But then,
at this point, everything you do gets called grimdark, doesn't it?
I know, people call Nevernight grimdark, and I'm like, it's a story about heroes and redemption. No, I feel that grimdark gets attached to authors more than it gets attached to books.
Yeah.
So once you write something and you're labeled a grimdark author, that's it. Like,
you're stuck with it.
Mark Lawrence is labeled a grimdark author because Broken Empire, Prince of Thorns, and the like are quite grim and dark. But like, I wouldn't say Red Sister or the like are grimdark at all, personally. But I mean, I think it's just a label that gets attached to people rather than books these days.
Yeah, that does seem to be the case based on our grimdark. Our genre panel for QuaranCon seemed to suggest that, and then MaydayCon's grimdark panel that you were on was similarly.
Yeah, that was just a big circle. It was just like, we're trying to talk about grimdark and what it is, and we're all just going in circles because really nobody seems to know.
Yeah, right. That was the takeaway for me from that whole 90-minute discussion was like, no one actually knows what grimdark is.
Nope.
The authors who write grimdark do not know. The publishers who started publishing grimdark don't know. They just keep throwing it around. They're like, well, grimdark sells books, so if anybody dies, then we can call it grimdark if we want to. You're like, really? Is that?
Yeah. Somebody gets stabbed. It's grim, stark. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like we've now discussed your books enough that I don't feel guilty returning to my really pressing questions, Rob. Such as, what is the best thing about having a beagle for a roommate?
See, she's gone now. She's wandered off. She's back downstairs. The best thing, I would say, the floppy ears. If she was here, I would display the floppy ears. They're so soft and they're so floppy and they're so big and they're wonderful just to stroke. And then she'll sit there and go, ah. So yes, big floppy ears and attack snuggles. Excellent.
Attack snuggles, love it. This from everyone's favorite grimdark author, Rob J. Hayes. Very grim, very dark, big fluffy beagle ears, so snuggly.
I like the beagle hugs.
Yeah, who doesn't? Dogs are the best, and beagles are great and very soft. What is the worst thing about having a beagle roommate?
The smell.
I was going to say it's either the smell or the howling. I don't know yet.
Well, the howling is... The howling's funny, at least to begin with. After about 5 minutes, you're like, all right, enough. No, it's the smell, because beagles are renowned for just eating anything and everything, and they really do. she just picks up sticks and eats it. She picks up poo and eats it. She picks up anything she can find and eats it. And you tell her to drop it, and at which point she just goes swallow, done. Which then leads to some fairly
Stinky.
horrific smells coming from the other end.
Amazing. For what it's worth, I have no idea if it would work on a beagle, but the way I trained my dog to stop swallowing random things, and I did it while she was a puppy, and I have no idea if it works on an adult dog, but anytime she would have something in her mouth she wasn't supposed to, I would swipe her mouth with my hand and to pull the thing out if it was still there. If she swallowed it, I would do it anyway. And she hated that so much that she wound up spitting everything out, because the only time I wouldn't do it was if she spat it out. And it doesn't, like, I was very careful not to like claw at her or anything, but just a mouth swipe, a mouth sweep, I guess, as if I were clearing her airway, which sometimes I was, because she wasn't very smart about the things she swallowed.
They're really not dogs.
But it worked.
I don't know if it's just because we've sort of bred intelligence out of them, like.
Yeah, well, I mean, beagles are meant to be really good at smelling things. That's why the big floppy ears to put the scent in front of the nose, and I mean that's about it, isn't it?
Chasing things, because beagles were used as
pointers. I mean,
fox.
Fox hunting.
Yeah, hunting and.
So chasing and making a lot of noise about it.
Yeah, they howl a lot.
Yeah, but that's because they are meant to be like alarms in terms of like they like, I smell a fox. Woo! It's okay.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas in reality, it's just like a car went past. That was a leaf.
Yep. Yeah. Artemis.
I love my little beagle. I do, but it's just insane.
Yeah. No. Well, but this is like, I mean, there are trade-offs with all dogs, and I feel like beagles are they're a lovely breed, but they have a couple problems. When I got Artemis, her dog brother at the time, the dog of my partner at the time, was a beagle, and so she grew up with an older brother beagle for a while, and it was just always he did all those things. He had the stinkiest farts, and he would just run off after stuff. Like you couldn't ever let him off leash. Like Artemis started being able to go off leash in like the appropriate areas at the age of like, I don't know, two or three, but just like her beagle brother was like, you could never ever let him go, because he would just go and not come back.
If Cora, like we can never let Cora off. We tried it a few times, but if she smells something, she's gone, and there is no amount of calling her name, there is no amount of waving treats will get her attention.
Yeah.
Smell, and she's on it.
Yeah. That is a standard beagle trait. Okay. Oh, great. So we go straight from this is what I get for putting my questions in this order. You know what? I'm going to save that one for later. Okay, I'm moving number 9. This is it's a good question. It's just not perfect for immediately following up silly beagle talk. So now the next question is, you seem to have excellent taste in scotch. What are some of your favorites? Also, how do you feel about the advice to write drunk and edit sober?
Okay, I don't actually drink scotch. I do drink whiskey. I drink
whiskey. Okay, all right.
Bourbon, Irish whiskey, and rum.
All right.
But I don't actually drink scotch. I've had a couple.
You don't like the peat thing?
I don't know. There's just. I think I prefer the sweetness of sort of like in bourbon or Irish.
Not a fan of the smoky.
Yeah, I definitely don't like the peat. So, yeah, I don't know. Not much of a scotch drinker, but as I say, I do drink a fair amount of bourbon.
All right. What's a favorite bourbon then?
My favorite bourbon in the acceptable price range.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's always
it's probably Woodford Reserve. I'm a big fan of Woodford Reserve.
That is a good one.
But then if I'm just going to break the bank, it would be Blanton's.
I haven't even tried it or heard of it, because it's probably way out of my price range.
Golf ball almost shaped bottle, and the corks have little horses on them.
Fancy.
Anyway, it's gorgeous, and if you can find a bottle for a reasonable price, I heavily recommend it.
All right,
sort of like the reasonable price range, Woodford Reserve.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, I agree with you on the Woodford. but I haven't heard of the other, and now I'll have to write it down and see if I can find it for celebratory something.
Oh,
Make it
and the write drunk and edit sober.
nice.
No, I cannot. I do not write if I have been drinking. For me, it's all sober. The
Yeah.
drinking comes afterwards. That's like celebratory. Woo! I did some work. Go get drunk.
I feel similarly. I will sometimes brainstorm drunk. Like I will, especially for things like catchphrases and titles and stuff. But I don't write drunk either.
Doesn't work for me.
For the same reason I don't write sleepy. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's not good for me.
I can't string words together in that sort of state. So
It's fair. Totally fair. It's always, it's one of those quotes. I think it's often attributed to oh God, what's his name? My memory is absolute shite.
sounds like an Oscar Wilde type thing.
Well, could be. I was thinking Hemingway,
It could be.
but I don't actually know. I mean, the thing is, I think it's often attributed to people. I have no idea who actually said it, but I think it's often attributed to Hemingway. Anyway, but it's one of those funny things. It's like, right drunk, edit sober. It cracks me up. But then there's like the musical advice that's you have to practice drunk to play drunk. So that suggests that you would just be drunk the whole time.
As someone who listens to a lot of metal and the like, I can say I've seen artists who seem to be drunk all the time. So it seems to work for some.
Seems legit, yeah. Along those lines, what is your favorite way to disconnect from the world and get out of your own head for a bit?
Honestly, I go and turn the Xbox on and just pick up and play something.
Yeah.
Usually something which has a sort of mechanical edge to it. So a good one for me is sort of this little card game called Slay the Spire on the Xbox.
Cool.
And I know the game well enough now that I know how to play it without thinking about it too much.
Yeah.
So it helps just turn that sort of side of my brain off, I guess.
Yeah.
So that I'm concentrating on the game and nothing else. I'm not really thinking about anything.
Is it a Hearthstone style or like a Magic the Gathering type card game when you say card game, or is it a different?
Yeah, it's not one that, I mean, you sort of like, it's one where you're going through a dungeon, and as you go through the dungeon, you're picking up new cards and adding it to your deck.
Okay, that's like Hearthstone now has versions, like they have attachments that do that, where you like do dungeon runs with a deck, and then you add cards. Yeah,
I think it's technically called a deck builder rather than a collectible card game, I think. So yeah, that one's a good one for me to just help switch my brain off at the end of the day and just spend an hour on that, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm all chilled.
Yeah, good. That's nice. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's anything that works, man. And I also play video games to disconnect. I used to read pre-pandemic. No, and actually I've gotten back into reading recently, but man, for a while I couldn't focus on reading. I think in the early-ish days of the pandemic, I played a lot of Hearthstone that I hadn't played in a while, because I basically stopped playing Hearthstone because it was distracting me from writing.
Yep.
So then I like quit. I mean, I didn't do anything to it. I just stopped playing it. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like trying to write, trying to read, trying to whatever, and couldn't. So I was like, well, Hearthstone.
That's it for me. If I'm sort of feeling a bit too tired to read or something, I can pick up a computer game, and it's because I don't know, it's a different type of activity. I can do that without falling asleep.
Yeah.
Or just feeling really tired, I suppose. But yeah, computer gaming just helps switch off for me. I don't think I've played Hearthstone. I played Legends of Runeterra a little bit recently, which was like the League of Legends version of Hearthstone.
Okay, cool.
Which was quite fun. But then same sort of thing. I was like, I'm just playing this. I'm not writing. I'm not really. And it was just sort of like, it's a bit of a time sink that was eating up my time. So I thought, get rid of it.
Yeah. And that's the problem that I keep having with Hearthstone, is that like, if you don't keep up with it, you miss out on a lot of the new game mechanics and the new cards, and so you have to commit to like playing at least once a week to keep up with things. And then if you're not doing that, then you're so far behind. You can't even create a deck that's worth using
Yeah.
for the non-dungeon run bits. The dungeon run bits are the thing you can actually always do no matter what's been going on, because it doesn't matter which cards you own. It just matters, like, they just give you cards as you do the run, and if you lose, you go back to 0. And so I actually have been doing that more often because that's an easier thing to just sort of dip into. But anyway, yeah, I like Hearthstone because it's funny, and I also love World of Warcraft, and I miss World of Warcraft, and I can't play World of Warcraft right now.
I know. I played World of Warcraft far too much. Years of my life. I think at least a year of my life has been spent playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and you can calculate it, right? Like, I think in your account settings it'll tell you. Yeah,
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like how much time I sank into that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will never go back, as much as part of me would love to, because I love the game.
Yeah.
It's a mine that you can never escape from.
It's true, yeah. Yeah, it is a bit like the pit. I mean, I like to think that I could do it in short bursts or something, and part of me was like, oh, okay, we're in quarantine, I should start playing World of Warcraft again, because why not? But my computer right now won't even run it. So
it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I've decided it's for the best. It's for the best. I am actually getting some amount of writing done, even if it's not a ton. So, all right. What are 3 foods that make you feel at home?
Ooh, 3 foods.
Just 3 comfort foods. They don't have to like home.
Bread. I love bread. I know it's not great for you, but I love bread.
Stuff that. It's great. I love
it. And I love Thai curries, Thai massaman and Thai green. And then probably cookies, because there's always cookies in my house.
Nice.
My lass bakes them constantly. She loves baking.
Goodness.
So there's always cookies in the house. So I actually, it's not good for the old waistline, but I love cookies.
Who cares about waistlines? Cookies are delicious, and you could die tomorrow.
I know. It's brilliant. It's brilliant and bad. There's always cookies in the house, so it's always so easy just to wander downstairs, cookie out of the jar.
That is a fabulous way to live. I think you're doing it right. What is the movie you most often quote with your friends?
Oh, movie.
Really hard-hitting one.
Probably Aliens.
Ah.
I would say there's usually quite a bit of sort of like, they're coming out of the goddamn walls, or game over. Yeah, I order that. Yeah, it's an infinitely quotable one. So there's probably that one. For certain. Or possibly Firefly and Serenity.
Yeah.
Again, just infinitely quotable.
Yes, there's a lot to choose from there. And yeah, I have seen Alien and Aliens, but I have not. Is it 2 different? Is the sequel? No, I'm so confused. This is the thing. I watched them when I was like really little, too little to watch them, and they freaked me out. And I was like, and never again. So I actually can't quote anything from Alien except the things that have become sort of memes. Because while I have seen it, I saw it as a small child and then was terrified and didn't ever want to see it again. But Firefly and Serenity, I've rewatched. I think I've watched the entirety of Firefly like 2 or 3 times, and then Serenity I've watched at least twice. So yeah, love those. What is your favorite gaming platform and why?
Favorite, yeah, probably the Xbox. I mean, I don't think it's the best, but it's the one that I play on with my friends.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that would be why. Basically, I'd be happy to play on anything, as long as I can play with my squad, as it were.
Yeah.
Group of guys.
How many gaming platforms do you own?
I own an Xbox. I own a PlayStation. PC, not that I play on it much. I own my phone, so 4.
Okay. Yeah.
4, I think.
That seems like a
He
fairly.
does want to buy a Switch as well.
Oh yeah, you gonna try out Animal Crossing?
Well, I want it for Fire Emblem. To be honest, like I don't know about any of the other games. I'm sure there'll be some others that I find. I just want to play Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I actually don't own a Switch, and I never have, and I haven't. Yeah, I actually haven't owned anything Nintendo-ish since the original, and also Game Boy, the original. And I still have my original Game Boy, my giant brick of a Game Boy, and it still works. Which is amazing to me because it's only slightly younger than I am, so it's got to be like 30. Like,
well, they were built to last back then.
They were like, I mean, it's also just a tiny little green screen with dots. I guess it's maybe not that hard to keep it alive, but that screen is still alive, which is cool. Anyway, but yeah, Switch sounds cool. Like there are a bunch of gaming consoles that I would kind of love to have, but I'm actually glad I don't have them because I would spend way less time doing any of the things that are productive.
I think it's so easy just to sort of go and play on a computer game rather than knuckle down and work.
Yeah.
It was especially even harder when I was when I was working full time and then coming home and writing.
Right, because you're like, well, do I relax or do I write
exactly.
this book? Which may be relaxing on some level, but it's not the same disconnect.
No, it's not like just sort of like switch off and bench.
Yeah.
So that was that was a lot harder. But yeah, I feel that if I had all the games that I want, and funnily enough, it's the same reason why I delete games from my phone pretty quickly after downloading them, because otherwise I just sit there and play on my phone rather than work. yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I do actually. I've deleted the more addictive games on my phone for the most part. Hearthstone, I seem to be able to say no to when I need to, but the rest of them, so the ones that, like all the not farming games, but the games that require you to come back and collect stuff, I deleted all of those because I was like, and they're strangely addictive, even though you're not really doing anything.
No, you're not, and it's like, yeah, I've deleted all of those. I mean, they're clearly intentionally designed that way, right? You get the little dopamine hits or whatever.
Well, I get addicted to these ones that basically play themselves. You get these little ones where you collect characters and then the game just plays itself.
Yeah.
And I just find myself, I like download one because I think, oh, the art's really cool. I'll give that a go.
Yeah.
And then like 5 hours later, I'll be like, I've been playing this game for 5 hours and I'm not really doing anything. I'm just watching it
happen. Yeah.
So yeah, I get addicted to them. I'm like, no, just delete it, get rid.
Exactly. My brain's the same. And so like for the same, like I don't even own a television. I mean, we have a screen so that we can watch movies and stuff, but we don't have cable or anything because I can't, like if it's around, I just turn it on and watch it and disappear, and like I can't be trusted. So we don't have it. And it's funny because I'll tell people like, oh yeah, we don't have cable, we don't really have TV, and they'll look at me like,
I know.
What are you, some kind of like Luddite? And I'm like, it's not that I like think I'm like morally superior or anything. Like I cannot be trusted to watch the television. Like if I have one, I will just abuse the heck out of it.
It's too easy just to sit down in front of it and just watch whatever's on.
Yeah. Oh, and I did that for years, and then I finally was like, I have to not be able to do this. So yeah, it's not like a not like a moral choice. It's just like a Virginia cannot handle a television. That is not a thing she can be trusted with. Okay, moving a little bit back towards writing. Name 3 authors whose works inspire you.
Okay, I get asked this one a lot actually.
Oh, you do?
I do, and I usually pick the same 3 authors because it's like they're sort of, I usually pick like Robin Hobb, Mark Lawrence, and Chris Wooding, because they're partly they are sort of my 3 favorite authors, and partly because they have inspired me so much over the years. But I actually, because you sent me this question beforehand, and I thought, I'm going to answer it a little bit differently. So I thought I'd choose. I choose a few that I've read more recently that have inspired me,
nice.
Rather than sort of like the classical ones. So I'm going to cheat though, because I'm still going to pick Chris Wooding, because a couple of years ago I was really struggling to get into epic fantasy again, which is one of my big loves. I love sort of epic fantasy, big series and all that.
Yeah.
I was really struggling to read them, and then I read The Ember Blade. Years ago, and I just absolutely loved it. Absolutely fell in love with it, and it sort of reignited that passion for epic fantasy.
Nice.
Which I think helped me to then go on and write what is going to eventually be a really big epic fantasy when it finally gets published, but who knows? Because it's with my agent and I can't.
Okay, fair
enough. So there was that one, and then I also I want to pick R.J. Barker for his Wounded Kingdom series, because I love sentence fragments. And I absolutely love them. I think they're such a great way to get across sort of thought, because people don't tend to think in complete sentences.
True, yeah.
You think in sentence fragments more often than not. At least I do. I feel that I'm probably not alone in that. So, but I absolutely love them. But I've always sort of like been told or thought that you can't write in segment fragments because it's not good grammar and everything. So from reading the Wounded Kingdom books, which are absolutely excellent and just I loved, he uses sentence fragments quite a lot, as well as actually playing with formatting. So it's not all just sort of like, text aligned perfect on the side. You have like, sometimes you'll have a line there and then you'll have a line there and then a line there, and it's all
cool.
So it's playing with the way that it's delivered, as much as what's delivered, and I absolutely love that. So I found a lot of inspiration from the way that that RJ has written those books.
Nice.
So I thought I'd pick him, and then for the third one, I thought I'd pick our very own ML Wang, because Sword of Kagan is amazing. It's such an emotional gut punch,
right?
I just felt so inspired by the sheer level of heartache that she delivers.
Yeah,
the pages of that book. I thought it was absolutely amazing. So, and it made me want to sort of dig deeper and write a more sort of emotional style, in many ways. So, yeah. Sort of.
I agree. She has inspired me in a similar way. Segueing from that, let's talk actually to go back to talking about the War Eternal series a little bit more. Let's talk about Eska's voice, because it's very distinct.
Yes, it is.
And it is very clearly Eska who's telling us the story. And you talked about taking inspiration from R.J. Barker's use of sentence fragments and the spreading out of words on the page. And I didn't notice any particular formatting tricks like that, but certainly Eska's voice is very much a person telling a story to someone. And that is, I think, to me, like one of the most notable things about the entire book is that it very much sounds like someone sat around a campfire telling some other person the story of their life, with including all the little bits of like, because I was an asshole, like the little, those self-commentary bits that we often put on our stories, and because I was a jerk at the time, I did this instead. And it's a very strong choice. Like it's a choice that you notice. So tell me a little bit about the process behind that and how you developed Eska's voice.
Okay, so I wanted to write this sort of story of a character looking back at their life, almost like the way that I can never pronounce the name. Kvof, in Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Almost the way that he does it, except he aggrandizes everything.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to do it in a different form. I wanted to do it so that this character is telling you about her life, but she doesn't aggrandize it. She tells you all the shit. She tells you all the bad things, all the mistakes she made. And a large part of that is due to the anxiety and the depression that is so obvious in Eska's voice. She suffers from these sort of mental illnesses quite strongly. And that's something that I really wanted to get across on the page, basically. So I think the development of her voice was very much I wanted to write this character who is looking back at their life, and it's the way that a person would look back at their life, because you don't sit there and think, oh yes, I was brilliant as a kid, I did all these wonderful things. You look back at your life and think, oh God, I did that. And I mean, yeah, it's not all like that, but I don't think there's probably anyone in life who can look back at everything they did and went, oh yes, I was brilliant. There's always going to be that time where you look back and like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I did that.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted her to call herself out over those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But I also wanted her to grow up as it goes on. So but book one is very much her as it's her looking back at her life, but in the period of the story that she's telling, she is a teenager,
right.
And I wanted her to come across as that teenager. She makes rash decisions. She's a little bit driven by hormones at times. She's a bit of a bitch at times, because people can be when they're teenagers.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the many ways in which teenagers manifest.
Exactly. But then she throughout the series, she definitely grows up. So book two, she's a bit older, and the idea was she'd come across more as she's in her sort of 20s. And then book three, she should be a bit older again, and she'll come across more like she's in her 30s.
Do we ever catch up with her so that she's telling the story in the present, or
not entirely?
Okay.
It's sort of, you get to the point of book three where she's finished telling that part of her story, basically, but you don't catch up to where she is telling it from
the narrator,
because she's sort of I had this idea that she'd be telling it as quite an old lady, who no longer has the qualms of having to sugarcoat things.
She definitely doesn't.
So you don't quite catch up with where she's at, but then you never know, there might be more in the future.
Oh, very good. All right, so I feel like that blends in well with this other question that I was putting off for a bit, but Eska has definitely anxiety and depression and perhaps some other issues as well. I know I share some of Eska's issues, which is actually, I find, has made it harder for me to read her because I see too much of myself in her and it grates. And that, I think, only speaks to how well you've written her. But it makes it a little too cringy for me. But that's my personal issue, not an issue with the writing. In fact, it speaks very highly of the writing. But let's talk now, back away from Eska a little bit and talk a little bit about mental health in general, mental health and writing, and being a human being during the pandemic. Because I do think mental health is always important and we never talk about it enough. And right now, it's extra important because we are, as a planet, going through something that is going to be traumatic to all of us on some level. And those levels will vary depending on the person and the scenario. So I think it's really important that we talk about that. And I think as writers, it's something that affects us in a way that we maybe don't talk about all that often, but you had spoken earlier already about how being in a bad place mentally made it really hard to write book 2 of the War Eternal series. I have certainly found similar issues with my own writing. When I am truly depressed, I cannot write successfully, and it's largely because I don't feel like I can't tap into my own emotions, because or tap into any fictional character's emotions either, because it's too close to what my brain is trying to avoid, and or else it manifests interestingly on the page, like you were talking about. It made Eska not the feisty character she was meant to be. But so now, like, you are successfully getting some writing done on a new project, so that sounds very promising. But overall, how is your mental health now? How is it affecting your writing, and how is the pandemic affecting you in general? And it's fine if that's not so much or a lot, or like any just honest answers about that.
It's definitely affecting me. I think it's impossible not to, and I think certainly during the first sort of like few weeks, I struggled to get anything done. I was sort of, I just couldn't find the will, the effort, I suppose, to do much. Certainly not writing, and even struggling with sort of editing and all that sort of thing. I just found this, finding the effort to be able to concentrate was hard work, because there was obviously so much else going on.
Yeah.
And it was all stuff that constantly intruded upon when you're sitting there trying to write, and you can't help yourself. You're thinking about all this other stuff that's going on in the world, and then you check Twitter, and that's just so yeah, it definitely affected me, especially during the early stuff. I think it still does to a degree. I know that it's quite depressing. I know here in the UK, technically lockdown has ended, however you want to put it. But I'm not entirely certain that's a good thing myself. So I'm still trying to stay home as much as possible wherever I can. And it does affect me, because I would like nothing more than to meet up with my friends and have a couple of pints and chat. But can't really do that. And as much as we can do it online, we can go on Zoom or whatever online and chat. It's not quite the same thing as sitting around and chatting that way. I find so. It's a struggle, and it's hard work. And I think the hardest thing about it is the forcing yourself to concentrate through it.
Yeah.
Because there's so much trying to intrude that it can be really hard just to sort of focus like that, at least for me. And as someone who does suffer from depression, I do feel that it's sort of like it's a trigger for it. So trying to stave it off can be quite difficult.
For sure. What are some things that have been working for you for staving it off? And we talked about ways to disconnect, and so I perhaps video games play a part in that role. But even beyond that, like personally, I'm finding going outside where I can. I'm lucky that I live near a little park that isn't very crowded, even as we start to ease out of lockdown measures. And so I can go take a walk in the woods with my dog, and that helps me personally. But like, are there any things that you're doing that are helping you keep the darker side of things at bay?
Drinking heavily.
Fair.
No. Dog walking, to be honest, is a good one for me. Funnily enough, one thing that I actually really enjoy, and it helps me when I'm plotting out a book and trying to figure things out as well, is not so much the sort of like the walking the dog, is just pacing. So we have this sort of like part of the living room and then a little hallway. And I can just stick my headphones in and walk up and down. And it's not anything that I need to think about. I can just I don't have to think about where I'm going or who that person come towards me is and how I need to avoid them or anything like that. So I find that's it really helps, because it really helps me just to sort of switch off a bit and delve into one of my many fantasy worlds inside my own head.
Yeah, nice.
Which for me has always been how I get through life, to be honest. Any sort of issues that I find are going on in my head often find them their way into the books that I write.
That's
as
awesome.
a way to externalize the feelings, I suppose.
A good old-fashioned pace. I feel like you need a nice drawing room for that in the future.
Oh, I'd love a drawing room. Unfortunately, our house is quite small, so I don't really have space for them.
We don't have, well, actually, I say we don't have pacings room, but actually the 4 rooms that are on the first floor, small though they are, all connect in a way that you can actually walk in a circle. We spend a lot of time chasing the 3-year-old in a circle, playing tag, which really just consists of running in hundreds of circles, but it's great. Yeah, that's cool. That's really I'm a little bit jealous that pacing works for you. I have to actually go for a run to get my brain to do the same thing that you're talking about, where it just sort of like shuts off from any other worries or concerns and hones in on fictional worlds and then starts to solve all my problems for me. It is the most amazing magic, but I can only do it by like going out and running in the woods. Um, and man, I wish I could do it by pacing. That sounds. I have to try it though. I don't know that I've ever tried a good pace. Like
It's
just
weird.
walking.
I don't know why it works for me. I guess it's just because I don't need to think about where I'm going at all.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
fair. That's
But
fair.
yeah, that works for me for sure.
Very good. That's awesome. Now I will picture you wearing a smoking jacket, holding a pipe, and walking up and down your hallway, even though I'm sure that's not accurate. You go.
I've got another prop there. Here's one. I don't know if you can see it.
There you go. Ooh, nice. No, it's pretty.
That one's the Thorin Oakenshield.
I was gonna say that looks hobbity, which obviously dwarfy, but but it looks a little bit rings. Oh,
It's
Gandalf.
the Gandalf.
Ah, very nice collection. Who knew you were so fancy, Rob?
I know. They're functional too, you can smoke them.
Ah.
I don't have a smoking
Is it
jacket.
hobbit weed? No, what's the
Shireweed.
Shireweed or something like that?
Long bottom leaf. Long bottom leaf.
Long bottom leaf. There you go. Wow, well done. Which feels like it ought to be a Harry Potter thing, but
yeah.
Well, that I think leads me because I've just learned a bunch of interesting things about you that I didn't know, despite our almost a year's worth of acquaintance. But my final question is, what is a little known fact about you that you are proud of?
I don't know. Oh, that's a tough one. I don't actually know because I tend to be quite open. I just don't really tell people anything about me, really.
Yeah.
A little known fact about me that I'm quite proud of.
It doesn't have to be a secret or anything, but just like something that not everybody knows. Like everyone knows that you write fantasy books that are good and people buy them. What's something? I mean, like I didn't know that you were a marine scientist until today. So that's really cool. But now everybody knows that, so you have to pick something else.
Okay. I'm quite proud of the fact that I'm actually a fairly good cook.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't like follow recipes or anything. I just seem to be able to do well with spices and flavorings. Just sort of like sort of like, oh, that'll do. A bit of that, a bit of that, and then it turns out all right somehow. And I don't really know how I do it. I just do, and I'm quite proud of that fact.
Excellent. That is a great thing to be proud of. How does the cooking break down between you and your partner? Do you guys
I'm not allowed to cook most of the time. I really enjoy doing it, but our kitchen isn't big enough for two, and she gets to the end of the day and she's just like, no, I just want to relax. I've been at work, and it's like, okay, do you want me to do the cooking? She's like, nope, I am doing the cooking. Go away.
Okay, well, if that's how she relaxes, that's fair. Exactly. What are you gonna do?
So it's one of those. It's like, oh, I like cooking. I'm quite good at it, but I don't get to do it much.
Well. I am neither quite good at it, nor do I enjoy it that much. I love baking bread, and I'm actually pretty good at baking bread, and I make a fine sourdough. And yesterday I made a new batch of what we call English muffins, but which obviously are not actually English muffins, as every English person I've shown them to isn't really clear on what they are. But they're not a muffin. I don't think they're English. What they are is, I don't know, they're like little bready, like little sourdough bread things that are cooked on the griddle, like you put them in a pan.
Bread roll.
Ish, but they're not a roll. They're flat because anyway, I could go grab one, but it's not really that important. But yeah, when I asked our whole group like what they called it, and nobody outside of the US had a name for it, and everybody in the US calls it an English muffin. So it was sort of like, it's a mystery as to where it actually came from or what it's good for.
I'm not entirely sure what an English muffin is myself, so as an Englishman, I feel I should know, but I really don't.
But do you guys even have, like, if you say muffin, is that a little like would-be cupcake but somewhat healthier?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's healthier, but it's a little sort of cupcake, a big sort of cupcake, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, because to me, like a muffin. I mean, it's funny because in the US, I think the only difference between a muffin and a cupcake is that like a cupcake is a cake, and a muffin is like It could be savory. It doesn't have to. It could be not. It could be sweet. Well, most of them are sweet, but they're like banana bready things and blueberry whatever, and they're just like not just like chocolate cake with icing on it. Otherwise, there's not much difference, I find. But anyway, this is a really critical point, obviously. All right, I'm going to look through our comments here and see if there are things worth answering. Misty306 says, hello, Misty. You are our super fan. I love you. You show up to everything, and it's awesome. Thanks for being here. Ask him about Northern Sunrise and the epic first covers for Heresy Within.
Okay. Northern Sunrise is a defunct name now. It was what I originally called my little steampunk thief caper, which I subsequently renamed It Takes a Thief to Catch a Sunrise. Cool. And I decided to write a series of books with characters set in the same world. I've only actually written and released 2 of them. There's It Takes a Thief to Catch a Sunrise and It Takes a Thief to Start a Fire. So yeah, the Northern Sunrise was the original name for It Takes a Thief to Catch a Sunrise, and it was named thus because it's an impossible thing
to catch a sunrise.
The sun never goes in the north, so right. I decided to call it the Northern Sunrise, and it made sense to me at the time.
That sounds legit. Titles are weird, man. You can do whatever you want.
And the original covers to The Ties That Bind were terrible. But that's what happened. No, I didn't do them. I did hire somebody to do them, but that's what happens when you hire somebody for $80 to do 3 covers.
Oh, yeah.
And then that was the artwork. And then me and my dad basically sat down on the computer over a couple of hours and sorted out the typography. So they were terrible. And you can find them online. I think they're on my Facebook author page, and also on my.
Are they on your Goodreads?
They might be on previous versions on Goodreads as well.
Yeah, because Goodreads keeps that shit forever. Yeah. Much to all of our embarrassment.
Yes. So yeah, they're awful. But yes, my debut, the Ties That Bind, has now been through 3 different covers for each book. Yeah. There was the original terrible ones. There was the ones that were done when it was picked up by the publisher, who I'm not going to name. And then there's the new ones which I had done afterwards.
Lovely.
When I re-self-published.
Well, they look beautiful now, so.
Yeah, they do now.
That's the moral of the story. We got there. It's the same thing with skunks. They don't want to spray. This is in response to snakes. Miracle says, wait, so Rob's next book is going to have snakes too, because that was my idea. I'll sue. Sorry, there's
no snakes in my next book, so I'm sorry.
Some people say, FBC says, hooray for Cora making an appearance. And now, can Rob tell us anything about the super fun new idea, or is it classified? That's the one that you're working on currently.
The one that I'm writing at the moment. I can't tell you much because it's still very early.
No.
There's only about 20,000 words at the moment, and I'm still figuring a lot of it out myself. It's got a working title of the Swords of the 12th.
Swords of the 12th. Oh yeah, that's right. I saw it, and you put up that cool logo.
Little emblem, which is sort of a military company. And that's pretty much all I can tell you. It's going to be a sort of dark military fantasy set in a world where humanity is on the brink of destruction, which may or may not be slightly influenced by
too accurate, a little too on the nose there.
No, but that's about all I can say at the moment, because I'm still very much me figuring it out while I'm writing it. So.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about things a little too soon, because you're like, well, what if I change my mind? And not to mention, you may just not have actually thought of it yet. Let's see, what else do we have? James Latimer says, it's good to see you can be a successful self-publisher without churning out multiple books a year. Obviously 3 at once notwithstanding.
I was originally planning to release 4 books this year, but I decided against it. So I pushed one of them back to next year.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no.
Also, FBC. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying 2 books a year is a maximum, I think, from now on.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that is
Exactly.
plenty. FBC says, also, please tell us more about the Never Die non-sequels that you are planning. Can we expect more dark S&S? I assume Sword and Sorcery. Or something else.
Yes. Okay, so the next one of those, I'm collecting them all under the series sort of title of the Mortal Techniques books. And they're all going to be standalones, basically. And I've written one, which is the sequel that's not a sequel to Never Die, which is called Pawn's Gambit, and that's the book I'm releasing in January next year.
Nice.
Which is going to focus on one of the minor characters from Never Die, the strategist, The Art of War.
Cool.
So yeah, and it's sort of it's going to be familiar enough to people who have read Never Die, but also different enough that it's going to stand on its own, basically. And there will be more at some point when I get around to writing them and coming up with new ideas for them.
That's the nice thing about loosely connected standalones. You just do it whenever.
Exactly. I thought I'd tie them together under this series title, The Mortal Techniques, as this sort of this sandbox world that I can jump into and out of, and when I have a story idea for it.
That's great. That's a fun thing to have in your back pocket whenever you get tired of the project you're working on.
Exactly. Take a break and write something fun and adventurous.
Yay. English muffins are almost like English muffins. There are things in England called muffins that you toast. Oh, really? Is James English? You would know. I don't.
James Latimer?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Aha. So he's speaking from experience. Okay. Yeah. If there's a thing called a muffin that you toast in England, it's like a little flat piece of bread. You cut it down the middle and you toast both, and then put stuff on both sides.
What is it though? Is it bread?
Okay. You know what? You keep people entertained for a second. I'm gonna go get one so you can see it.
Okay. I don't know how to keep people entertained. I'm just gonna sit here and say hello. No, is it like a crumpet? Because crumpet's a sort of an English thing. I don't know that much.
It's okay. So this is a whole bag of them.
Okay, those look like what I would imagine an English muffin is, but I don't. Is it sourdough?
It's sourdough, yeah. It doesn't. Okay. I mean, I don't know if they have to be sourdough, but the best ones are. But yeah, you just cut it down the middle and then put whatever you want on it. It is savory. It can be made sweet. You can put jam on it instead of, cheese or whatever. But there you go. That's what I call an English muffin. But I legit have no idea. Like most English people I've mentioned it to haven't, like, they're like, I don't even know what that is. So.
I don't think so.
Which is fair. They're not particularly difficult to make, and you can make a lot at once. And so, like, I just made, like 21 of them yesterday, and then they'll keep us in bread for a week. So that's great. Maybe not a week, but a couple days anyway. We eat a lot of bread in this house. So when you were like, I know bread's not healthy, I'm like, don't say that. Bread's fantastic. Some people have issues with gluten, and they can.
I absolutely love bread. It's like, I know you're not supposed to eat loads of it.
I will eat loads of bread and die happy and whatever. People can.
Flour and pumpkin seed bread, which I get from the local supermarket. I absolutely love.
That sounds really good. Well, I think that's kind of it. We've got through. Muffins are like crumpets, but not the same. All right, James, if you say so.
I prefer crumpets. I don't know. I like crumpets at least.
Crumpets aren't crumpets like American biscuits? Like they're like flaky, buttery. No. What's
crumpets are sort of bready type things, but with lots of holes in, and you toast
Oh yeah,
them.
that's totally what this is. This is a crumpet then.
Yeah.
Like you
I
cut it open and there's like lots of little dips in it, like
Yeah.
crevicey things, because it's sourdough.
don't know if
and-
crumpets are sourdough. I don't know.
Oh, but they still have that.
That's a technical discussion.
Oh, Jesus. We're gonna get deep into the bread here. I feel like if we've reached this point in the conversation, then maybe we've covered it. James also said pipeweed earlier for the Lord of the Rings stuff, but
Fair enough.
But maybe, I don't know. I feel like long bottom weed sounded really strong. I'm going with that.
It's definitely a thing. I'm cool with it.
All right, and also FBC, and I assume this is here, but I don't know. We, mainly I, also want more First Earth. It was a statement, not a question, so I don't feel like you have to answer it.
There's a plan. At some point, there will be 6 more First Earth books.
Whew.
At some point.
At some point.
I can't tell you when.
Rob J. Hayes, long may he live, so that everyone can read all the books.
I've got plans for another 6 books, but I keep thinking of other stories and writing them.
That's fair. Personally, as a fellow author, I feel like you have every right to just write whatever you want. I know sometimes readers get a little upset about it, but you got
I've heard no death threats, so I take that as a good sign.
That's good. Very good. All right, Rob. Well, is there anything else you would like to say to anyone? Everyone buy Rob's books. Actually, you know what? It turns out Yesterday Me was a genius, and there's already links to the War Eternal in the description for this video, so I don't even have to go back and post links. They've been there the whole time. Go Yesterday Me. And yeah, anything else you'd like to say? Everyone should buy your books, just so we're clear on that.
Yeah, buy my books. Buy Virginia books.
Oh, sure. I mean, if you have spare money after you've bought all Rob's books.
Follow Spiffo. Be excellent to each other.
Yes, I like that.
It's always a good one.
That is a good one. It's a good quote and an excellent sentiment. Be excellent to each other, friends. All right. Well, with that, we will say goodbye to the live stream, and we can still talk if you want. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate everyone who showed up. And we'll be doing this again on June 4th with Darian Smith, fellow SPFBO finalist from 2019, and also an award-winning author. And so be sure to check in then. Still working out timing, but I think about 3 p.m. my time, which is Central Daylight Time, CDT. So come back for that, and I'll post the video will show up on YouTube soon as a the waiting for this link. But thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode of CorrinCon Cubed. I'm gonna make some music for that too. Oh gosh, wait, I have to hit the other button. Now everybody gets to awkwardly watch this because I didn't set it up properly first. Okay, bye. Okay.